can make really good swords. They can fold the iron 1,000 times, but we couldn't do that anymore. And I'm like, couldn't we build an iron folding machine and just say, okay, just start folding iron, stop when you get to 1,000 and you have really strong swords or something. Like, no, we're just a little rough. It's like, we could never go to the moon again because it's too complicated now. In the 60s, it was easy. You had dad, you had mom, you had 2 kids. They knew how to go to the moon. Now you got divorced families, you got mixed things. We got 79. Good Lord. It's time to start the show. I was talking about the moon. A lot of people don't know we went to the moon. I was saying we did. Not when you think, which is that stuff you saw with them bouncing in the studio. That was all taped down in Hollywood by actors. But we went to the moon and discovered it's made of cheese. And then the people in Wisconsin didn't want to really get the competition, so they managed to shut down the moon program until Wisconsin is out of cheese, and then we'll start importing it from the moon, I think. That's what I heard. It was late at night. Terrible news, everyone. You might want to sit down if you're not already sitting down. You probably are. You're watching Access. And no one stands up when they watch Access television. Generally, you're seated, and I'm assuming that you're near sleep or you don't have the energy to move or something, which is why you're sitting. But okay, so you're sitting down, so you're prepared for the bad news. Michael Jackson is dead. Some of you might not have known that if your television, which you're now watching, hasn't been on for any of the past 9 days. Because if your television had been on at all, they would have mentioned it. They're like, Michael Jackson's dead. And did you hear? Michael Jackson's dead. And something bad happened somewhere. And Michael Jackson's still dead. Saturday Night Live. If Saturday Night Live was live, they could do a great skit where they come out and said, Michael Jackson is still dead. Although I think it would have to be Chevy Chase that did it. Anyway, he's dead. I've mentioned that a bunch of times because I want it to sink in so that you all can finally come to terms with it. Because apparently he was the only worthwhile person in the last 50 years that we should be concerned about. And that's why they've spent 8 days telling us how horrible it is that he's dead. I heard about it on Twitter. As you know, I'm on Twitter. I tweet a lot. Most of it is lies because I'm trying to confuse people. So I saw on Twitter, Michael Jackson is dead. And I'm like, really? And they were like, yeah, he got rushed to the hospital. I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably true. Who'd make this up? Michael Jackson's a nobody. And so, of course, it must be true that he's dead. And then briefly I thought, Michael Jackson, who's Michael Jackson? I'm like, oh, the singer guy. Because there's this British guy named Michael Jackson who's on the radio. And I briefly thought it could have been him. I'm like, no, they wouldn't bother to mention that on Twitter. Funny story. In Hollywood, there's a star for Michael Jackson because, of course, he's a star. He got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The other Michael Jackson also has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And when Michael Jackson died, his star was covered up by the red carpet for the Bruno movie premiere. So that day, all the people in Hollywood that went to the Michael Jackson star to put down their little flowers and stuff were putting it on the star of Michael Jackson, the British radio announcer. I thought it was humorous. But apparently no one else did. I actually went after Michael Jackson died, I went into Twitter and said, I feel terrible for all the children of the world who no longer will have the chance to be molested by Michael Jackson. Because that's the kind of guy I am. And then 10 minutes later I went, too soon? Because apparently you got to wait a couple weeks before you make the child molester is dead jokes, is my thought. And since everyone in the world keeps talking about how Michael Jackson has touched their lives in the many ways in which he's affected them, and it's horrible that he's dead now, and everything else, I thought I would briefly talk, because I got half an hour to fill. I got to talk about something, and trust me, the rest of these topics aren't any better than this, although I am totally bombing here. Even though I got an audience here you wouldn't believe. There are people as far as the eye can see, which admittedly with the lights isn't terribly far, but it is kind of far. And it's full of people. Anyway, so Michael Jackson, people are like, oh, he was a great musician, he was whatever. I'm like, oh, he had some good songs. I can't hum many of them. There was that Thriller one where apparently he turned into a zombie. I remember the video. And they're like, it's the greatest video of all time. And I'm like, no. I don't know what the greatest video of all time is. I don't think it's Thriller. They're like, he's dancing and spent so much money and it was great. And I'm like, greater than that Total Eclipse of the Heart video? I don't think so. Although even that's not really the best video I can think of. Maybe that Aha thing they did all in pencil where they sketched it. That was a good video. I really stopped watching music videos in 1992, so don't expect anything topical at all. I don't even know where you'd go to watch a music video these days because music video television doesn't show music videos. So you kids today have probably never seen one. You've just heard about them in the history books. Anyway, Michael Jackson, people are like, yeah, he was the greatest singer ever when he was young, and he had so many number one hits, and he was sexy. And I was like, well, I'm a dude, so other dudes aren't sexy in any meaningful way. And okay, he had some good songs, but he hasn't really had any good songs lately that I can think of. Oh, well, there's one video. He had that video where they kept morphing from person to person. I don't know what it is. The research guy will look up what the title was.
Black and White.
Black and White, what it was. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you really. And he had the We Are the World. I think he did the We Are the World, which had a good melody. Not quite as good as the one from the year before about the Christmas time in Africa, yada, yada, yada. But people were like, it's terrible. We're not going to hear any more great songs from Michael Jackson. And I'm like, well, you really haven't heard any great songs from Michael Jackson in a long time anyway. I mean, he hasn't been making music. He's just been kind of a creepy guy, living in California, touching little boys inappropriately, and not going to jail for it. And then I was talking with someone else who was like, it's terrible, I'll never be able to go see Michael Jackson again. I'm like, haven't you ever heard of imitators? You can still go see Elvis, for God's sake. And he's been dead since I was 13. I don't think I ever saw Elvis when I was alive, but I've seen him a lot since he was dead. I mean, right now, I don't know if there are Michael Jackson imitators, but if you look at all like Michael Jackson in the 20s, when Michael Jackson looked like Michael Jackson, you should immediately learn to sing or lip sync, because I think there's a great career in it for you. There's like 50 concerts in London they got to have someone do, and if you look enough like Michael Jackson, maybe they'd hire you to do them. And as you know, I'm a news junkie, which is why this Michael Jackson thing bugs me, because for the last week, there's been no news. It's amazing. Like, if I turn on CNN, they're not talking about news. They're talking about something that happened a week ago. And something that happened a week ago is a week ago's news, or 6 days ago's news, because news is really what happened yesterday. I don't know what happened now is called, but tomorrow we'll call it news. So, see, I had more, but this ain't working, is it? Apparently I'm terrible when I talk about Michael Jackson. Or the entire audience has died. That's also a possibility. Michael Jackson was, as we know, the third of the triumvirate, in that people say everyone always dies in threes. So we had Ed McMahon died, then Farrah Fawcett died, and then much to Farrah Fawcett's dismay, although she's dead, so not her dismay, Michael Jackson died the day later. Because Farrah would have been all over the news if... Okay, same day. John says they died the same day, I guess. But see, Farrah would have been all over the news if Michael Jackson hadn't stolen her thunder by dying the same day. Couldn't he have waited a day or two, for God's sakes? I mean, the woman's been going on talk shows and battling the cancer and putting up a good fight. She was about to marry what's his name? Ryan O'Neal. Yeah, I know. I said what's his name, and then someone was going to say Ryan O'Neal. They've been together for like 40 years, and finally they thought maybe this will last. And so they made plans to get married, and then she dies. Man, it sucks to be Farrah. And that's another one. They were for like 3 hours, like she's dead, and then the TV's all like, yeah, Farrah Fawcett's dead, and they kept showing that poster. that apparently every person in America except me owned. Oh look, here she is. I'm like, I recognize the poster. I didn't own it. I don't think I had any posters in my room, not posters of people. I, for some reason, had a big poster of the explosion in Hiroshima on my ceiling. I don't remember why. Perhaps I was weird as a child. And Ed McMahon also got shortchanged because he died, and they were like, yeah, we'll have a big funeral for him, and all the TV people will talk about it. And then like a day and nothing after that. Now that said, I didn't feel that bad when Farrah died because I never had the poster. I never lusted after Farrah or did whatever 14-year-old boys did to the poster of Farrah, which I've heard is disgusting. I did not do that, people. Not me. No, the person who's died in the last week that really bugged me, and I was stunned at this, because I never would have predicted it, is Billy Mays died. Like 4 or 5 days after Michael Jackson. He didn't want to steal his thunder. And I'm sitting on Twitter again, and it's Billy Mays died. And I'm like, Billy Mays? Who the heck is Billy Mays? And I'm like, oh, he's that baseball guy. And I went, no, that's Willie Mays. And then I'm like, maybe it's a typo. You could type Billy Mays when you meant Willie Mays. I mean, Willie Mays has got to be old. I don't know how old he is, but he's got to be old because he played baseball back before they had the steroids. And that was a long time ago, as far as I know, because I think they've had the steroids forever in baseball. That's why they... So Billy Mays is the infomercial guy. And then they were like, Billy Mays, the infomercial guy. Hi, I'm Billy Mays. You should buy crap. And then whatever the crap was, it's like, you should buy this cleaner. And I'm like, I can buy soap at the store. And they're like, this is great. It makes your whites white. And I'm like, aren't your whites by definition white? That's why they're your whites. Like, if you had a bunch of laundry, and if it was pink colored, and if you put it in the washer and it came out white, it would be making your pinks white. So they had to start out white. Okay, I'm just a logistician kind of guy. Maybe no one else cares about this minor discrepancy. But no, Billy Mays sold like a million things. And the reason it bugged me is, well, first of all, I hated him because he's on TV and he's interrupting the shows I actually want to see. And then I'm like, he's freaking seductive in that I'll be watching the commercial and I'll be like, I don't need a thing to attach to my garden hose to clean my car. And then like 30 seconds later, you're like, but it does look like it works. It looks, and then like 30 seconds later, you're like, I would like a clean car. And then like 2 minutes later, you're like, wow, that is the best car cleaning hose thing ever. I should go. And then the commercial ends and I'm like, oh, no, I would never wash my car anyway. I mean, I could wash my car poorly now without the magic hose thing, but I don't. So what makes me think that if I had the magic hose thing, I would suddenly start washing my car all the time? And beyond that, if I washed my car all the time, it would just start to get dirty after I washed it. Whereas now there is so much dirt on my car that as I drive it, the wind blows some of the dirt off. And when I park it, more dirt accumulates. So I have reached, I believe, the steady state of dirt on my car. It can get no dirtier. So the dirt is protecting the car from the dirt. And in particular, I felt terrible because, as you know, I in addition to being a endless celebrity, I am also an entrepreneur. And I have a product which I try to sell. And I say try to sell because it doesn't sell. And I have tried to film infomercials for my product to try to sell it better. And they haven't worked. Because as you know, I ran my commercial on real television. I gave Google money and said, please run this commercial. And they said, we'll take your money. Okay, we'll run it. Nothing. Like a whole week went by of my commercial running and no one bought anything. Like, how do you know your commercial didn't work, Keith? And I'm like, because no one bought any. It's not like I didn't notice a rise in sales. It's not like sales only went up at a 3% rate, which could be explained just by word of mouth. No, there were no sales, 0 sales. So I thought to myself, apparently I'm not good at doing infomercials. And therefore I am unable to sell my crap. But certainly there are people who can sell crap on infomercials, and Billy Mays is that guy. So I was like, I should hire him to do my infomercial. Not realizing, of course, that he makes huge amounts of money for doing infomercials and would never do mine. But now that he's dead, my story is we were about to film an infomercial. And therefore, I am going to dedicate the next 3 months of non-sales of the product to Billy Mays. Not the money, just the sales. If anyone asks, I'll be, we're selling it for Billy. Here's something else. You may notice my hands are freakishly clean. You probably didn't notice that because why would you care? See, I've had to wash my hands like 900 times in the last 24 hours. Because last night, about 9 o'clock, they were essentially black. Because I have this inkjet printer at home that every once in a while doesn't work. And then I'm like, I should run the head cleaner because it's an inkjet printer and Lord knows I'm paying more per ounce of ink than I would pay for gold. So what I should do is tell the printer to spray a bunch of ink, not onto the paper that I've paid for, but into a little ink well at the side, wasting it to clean the heads. And eventually the black stopped printing. And now I got a 6-color printer that can print 5 colors. And of course, the one color it can't print is the one color that you use the most, because that's freaky planned obsolescence. That's let's make the black one break. That way, that's buy a new printer. And I'm like, curse you, Epson! I'm not going to buy a new printer. So I'm like, I'm handy. How hard could it be to clean a print head? Don't ever say this. Don't ever say how hard could it be to clean a print head. As it turns out, it's not hard to clean a print head. You get a screwdriver and you unscrew things and you take them out and you stare at it. And you think, I wonder how modern print heads work. Because it just looks like a big flat thing with a bunch of tubes coming in. And then you think, well, certainly someone invented it. I'm bright. Maybe I can figure it out. And then after 10 minutes, I went, I don't think I can figure it out, but I can soak it in alcohol. Maybe that will fix it. Because if you soak stuff in alcohol, it always gets better, and if it doesn't, you could drink the alcohol. But not in this case, because it was denatured alcohol. It would make you blind. Don't do it, kids. So I took the print head, I dumped it in a big bowl full of denatured alcohol, and instantly the denatured alcohol turned kind of blackish. And I thought, aha! The print head is getting clean, because the printer ink, which used to be in the print head, is now in the denatured alcohol. So I was like scrubbing it, and I got a little syringe, and I was trying to squirt denatured alcohol through the tubes. And I noticed that I could squirt denatured alcohol through 5 of the tubes. Remember, 5 colors worked, 1 color didn't. So I surmised that the last tube must be the black tube and therefore be clogged. So I'm holding the print head, and I got the syringe, and I'm squirting alcohol, and I'm squirting alcohol, and I'm pouring more alcohol, and I'm squirting and squirting. Let me just say that makes your hands really ungodly black when you're dipping them in denatured alcohol into which you've dissolved tons of printer ink. Thankfully, after about half an hour of doing this and noticing things like, look, I can squirt it through and it comes out the bottom in tiny little drops. I was like, great. And I finally got the black one unclogged, and I was like, victory! I have saved buying another $59 printer. And then I spent, I think, $10 worth of that orange scrubby soap to get the ink off. And, then I was typing today, and it's like each little key press, you're like, oh yeah, I scrubbed that fingertip a lot. So it's kind of rough. But anyway, if you have a printer that doesn't work, and if you don't mind getting your hands, truthfully, it's fun. Let your kids do it. You've got a kid who's handy. So one other thing is I've been trying to go back through some of the older shows and get them re-uploaded to the internet, which we haven't, we we started this series. I got to think it was 26, 27 years ago now. I got to think that it was actually only like 7 years ago. But we have a bunch of old shows, which are so old, in fact, I no longer have the files for them. I just have the DVDs we made, so I like extract the DVDs back into the computer. And then I'd encode them and re-encode them, and then I'd upload them to the website so people could watch them, and then they wouldn't work, and people would email me and go, yeah, it's not encoded right. And I'm like, curse you! But I did notice in the first season I spent an awful lot of shows talking about movies. And the whole show I'd be talking about the same movie. And I would explain the movie in intricate depth, and I would go through it plot-wise. This happened, and this happened, and this happened. And I must have spent a lot of time editing back then because I had all these visual effects, and it was crazy. I was like, I had a show apparently when I talked about James Bond Die Another Day where I replaced the entire background with this smoke effect, just this slowly drifting smoke effect, and I'm like, why is this show taking forever to render? And I realized it's because in every frame, every pixel is different. Like the poor computer is like, that frame has nothing to do with the frame before it because the entire background is shifting around. And the poor little MP4 encoder is just going nuts. I don't know how I did it back then because the computers were slower and everything. I come to this because I was going to brief. We went to a movie the other night. As you know, we have guys' movie night, which some guys and I do. We started it. I don't know why we started it. Apparently, we have too much free time, or we want to see bad movies and our girlfriends don't. It's probably that second one, come to think of it. In fact, I seem to recall sitting at a donut shop going, yeah, we should go see this movie. And all the girls went, no, that would be dumb. And then we went, well, we should go see this movie. Because all the guys were sitting on one side and all the girls were sitting on the other side. And so we invented Guys Movie Night. We trademarked it. Don't take it away from us. I'm sure no one has ever thought of it before us. Anyway, this group of friends and I, we occasionally go out and see a movie. And it's better if it's a terrible movie. But it can't be ungodly terrible. It can't be like Strange Wilderness terrible. Strange Wilderness was so bad, you couldn't enjoy it. Whereas Hot Rod was a bad movie. It was great. Because it was kind of somewhat past the good line in the bad direction. But it hadn't gotten so bad that it made you want to pull your eyes out with a fork. Last night we went and saw a movie called Year One. You're never going to have heard of it by the time this show comes out because it will have left the theaters. It's not really a good movie, but I had read the reviews of the movie before I went, and I had expected a much worse movie. So I was pleasantly surprised by the Year One movie. I'll briefly describe the plot so that it's kind of like I'm doing the first season, but I got 5 minutes left, so it's got to be so. It's weird in that Year One is kind of like take all the old people you've ever heard of and act like they were all alive at exactly the same time and doing stuff. So like it starts out in the Garden of Eden with the tree of knowledge and the apples, and someone eats the apple, and then they go off and they find Cain and Abel, and then they help Cain kill Abel. It's a mistake. It's a horrible mistake. And then they find Abraham, who's the father of Israel, and they get to Sodom and Gomorrah. And apparently they're supposed to meet Noah, although I guess that got cut from the film. I read this on IMDb. They're like, yeah, they wrote the script, and then afterwards, after Evan Almighty did so terribly, they thought we should cut the parts about Noah, because apparently big arcs aren't funny. I'm like, that's not the lesson I would have drawn from Evan Almighty.
Yeah.
I would have drawn the lesson, that's just a stupid movie. I don't think the big arc was the problem in Evan Almighty. I think it was all the stuff before, during, and after the big arc that was the problem. The big arc is just an innocent bystander, really. But apparently they cut Noah out of this movie because, hey, big arcs aren't funny. Hopefully someday someone can make the big arcs funny again. Year One, done by Harold Ramis. Harold Ramis, to me, gets a pass on every movie he makes for the rest of his life because Harold Ramis made Groundhog Day. which is quite possibly one of the best movies ever. And he also made Ghostbusters, which is also quite possibly one of the best movies ever. And he made Year One, which is not possibly one of the best movies ever. But it is funny. If you get a chance to watch it on HBO, maybe you could spend some time. Don't expect a lot. And for God's sakes, don't try to apply any logic to it at all. Because you're like, I think more time happened between that in the Bible than a week. Like, I don't think they were all alive at the same time. Although, truthfully, that's probably like in 500 or 600 years what their telemovies of now are going to be like. Which is, they'll have George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and John Wayne all in the same movie. Because they were those old guys. Lincoln and John Wayne can go charging at Hitler with the bayonets. That'd be a great movie, come to think of it. Man, I got to find someone in Hollywood. I don't have a lot of time left. Someone asked me to mention this. I have someone on my crew named John. John has this song called Smelter. John's a musician. And I can say John's a musician because John has a song. Now, it used to be John Winter used to have been a musician. Like, if you go back 50 years ago, John would just be a guy that hummed a lot. But now, you can buy a computer, you can make a song in your house. You can get a little microphone, you can record things, you can do a little background, you can do a song in your house. And then what's more, you can put the song on a CD, you can mail it to someplace, and they will encode it and upload it. You can get your song to be sold in the iTunes Music Store. And that, I think, technically makes you a musician, although I don't know if anyone's ever bought his song from the iTunes. Well, I'm sure John has bought it. And now I'm going to have to buy it, because I'm going to have to put the theme to Smelter under the credits or something. But it's this crazy-ass song called Smelter, which is about a smelter.
What's a smelter?
Okay? All the other good song topics were taken. John was sitting in his house, I'm sure, thinking, I would like to make a song about puppies. And then he'd like, now there's already a song about puppies. How about rainbows? I'll do a song about No, someone did the song about rainbows. How about smelters? And then you go to Wikipedia and you go smelter space song, and it would go no hits. And you're like, wow. I found the only 2 words that don't occur anywhere on the internet together. Smelter song. I'm going to write a song about a smelter where they smelt iron in the smelter. And then I'm going to publish it, and then people will love me. Okay, I'm out of time. Enjoy Smelter. I'm going to have to edit a lot. There's going to be a lot of editing on this show.
By the way, young man, your blue ink doesn't work.
I'm on a hill, digging up some ore. I've dug a bunch, but I always need more. It has to go down this big hill. Oh my gosh, hope it doesn't spill. Hope it doesn't
So I lied. You're not technically yet a musician.
Smelter.